Another question, with regards to street preachers, the Orthodox seem to want to argue to preach the gospel by example only, not using words. How does this reconcile the Great Commission? So there's nothing wrong with street preaching per se, but the vast majority of it is done in a way and in a spirit that is not productive and not going to be salvific. But in and of itself, we're not opposed to street preaching. It's just that the very, very few people are going to do it with a blessing and do it well and do it in a manner that's going to be salvific. So, we in the church, to be an apostle is to be sent. That's what it literally means. So are you sent to preach by the church? Very rare, because to be that kind of person, you're going to be like an apostle, and that's going to be a spiritually advanced person. So we do things not just to do them, but to do them well and to do them according to the way the saints do them. And because most of us are not prepared to do that, it's better not to do it. You have to do a good thing in a good way. Otherwise, it's not a good thing. So the problem is not per se the idea of standing on the corner and speaking the words of salvation, but who's prepared to that? Who's blessed to do that? It's very, very few people. My experience with most Protestants that have done this and that I've seen in my own experience in college and other places, that they have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they're not really prepared. They're not doing it in a saintly way. They're not sent by the church to do it. And I can't speak for their Protestant, congregations. I'm talking about the Orthodox phronema, the Orthodox way. And I think the patristic principle is to do something good, you've got to do it in a good way, very much applies to this question. And that's the problem. And we follow the saints, and their examples. So we have many great missionaries. What did they do? How did they do it? Did they go on the corner? It's very rare to see that throughout church history. We have 2,000 years of church history. It's not that often that you see that. You have to have discernment to see, well, in this context, in this people, with these people, is this going to be salvific? And you want to bring them into the life of the church ultimately. It's not just to see, the whole Protestant perspective is to get them to just, I'm talking about certain evangelical Protestants and others, is to get them to, confess Christ but not necessarily to build up the life of the church. And that is a much deeper and longer process than, going back and forth on the street and getting somebody to accept your point of view. But you're also talking there in that context to a whole swath of people who are not the same. And so St. Paul didn't go indiscriminately on the street and preach. He didn't do that. He went to the synagogue. He went to the Jews first. And then he would go from there, and he would, analogous with the receptivity of the people, he would talk perhaps in a public way. He didn't just indiscriminately, undiscerningly stand on a corner and start to talk. He was invited to go to Areopagus, right? He was invited. They said, come here. We want you to come here and talk to us about this. But he wasn't on the street preaching, and then they said, oh, let's hear you. Or he didn't go up to Areopagus without an invitation. So there's a lack of discernment in my estimation with regard to the street preachers.